And we are live. We'll just wait a couple minutes. I know I always say that and I end up waiting like seconds because it's hard to wait a few minutes.
Yeah, it's hard. It is very hard.
Isn't it so funny, like your difference in time when you're either not even just in front of a camera, but like in front of people speaking, like just how different your time contortion gets?
Yeah, you think it's like you've been talking for, 10 minutes and it's been 30 seconds.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Or sometimes I'll get comfortable and then I'll be talking forever and I'm like, oh shoot, I just used up all the time. Like if I'm teaching a class or something and I'm having one of those weirdly comfortable days, I'll just be like, oh, and then we spent the entire class on the intro. My bad. See you later, everybody.
Yeah, like, oops. Well, come back next time, please.
Yeah, but it is like when you're speaking, I don't know, something happens. It's like the childhood thing we were talking about, time
Oh,
contortion.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
What game were you
Yep,
playing?
something that takes forever as a child. I was running my 5th edition D&D game for the Mastermind teens, as I always call them. I don't know if you remember Jalen and Sophia and Ben,
I remember Ben.
Jack.
I
Yeah,
remember Jack. Jalen,
yeah,
Sophia.
they're all
I didn't see.
mostly normal. So we have a couple of new kids, but they're I love them all. They're so great. They're so good for my ego because they tell me how awesome I am all the time.
Yes,
Um,
not the best.
so and like I sometimes need people to tell me how awesome I am because like I don't believe it myself. So
You're so
so
awesome to
they're
remember.
just great. They're so creative and awesome, and we have such a good time. I think there's a couple of kids in it who are like annoyed that we don't do as much combat, but the other kids, like there's like one kid who's like, "Why aren't we rolling dice?" And I'm like, "Because it's a story and we're telling a story together, and we
I'm
don't do a
trying to
whole lot
be
of dice
so
rolling because it." Yeah, but it's great. They're doing this is like my most I would call it my most experimental game because it's there's a lot going on. I set up the game as a like it's called a hex crawl. So like I gave them a big hex map and I was like, every hex has an adventure in it basically. Like it has a monster, it has a mystery, it has a puzzle, it has something.
Mm-hmm.
And they could just kind of pick and choose where they wanted to go and just kind of do all that fun exploration stuff. And so I had them um, they're from this floating island, and they're part of the royal exploration group of this kingdom called Airy. It's mostly like elves and like non-human things. None of
Mm-hmm.
them chose to play a human, so I was like, okay, the kingdom you're from has like no humans in it. All the humans are from this like other country. And so they're going down to explore this. They're in this floating. So they float on this sea of clouds, and one day there was like a big earthquake and these like portals opened in the clouds. So no one has been able to go below the clouds. These portals opened and the king of Erie was like, we need to send people down to see what's down there because like we have legends of like Scepter, their island, coming from a land below the clouds, and it rose up into the clouds to like escape this big calamity. We need to go down and see if the world is still down there because for the longest time we thought that there was no one down there.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so they go down in this hot air balloon and they find like a whole world that they've never seen
What?
before.
I like that they
And so they now
I like that method
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
travel.
Yeah, yeah. So they have a hot air balloon because the way I basically did it is like Scepter as a whole is like very steampunky, like magical.
Mm-hmm.
And the Fallen World, as they call it, is very much like Bronze Age, like not a whole lot of magic. Like things are very much like more like clannish and like there's a whole clan of people that are more like Gaulish, like barbarians, as it were.
Ooh.
They're in this area where the halflings control it, and the halflings are all Roman flavored. So they all
Ooh.
wear like togas and they have these big, beautiful cities. And they just left this really magical city, which is the only magical city in the whole area. And they just have a great time like walking around and talking to people and dealing with all of like the culture shock. Right now, they just got to a point where they are they climbed up so they came across this enemy group of people from Gelmiri, which is the human kingdom on Scepter,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the characters decided to leave the group and go with them to like infiltrate.
Yeah.
And then they're looking for this dragon, and the dragon attacked their big airship they were on, so they crash landed and got separated from the group. So now it's just like the leader of the Gelmirian group and Terra, who are like off on their own, trying to climb this mountain called the
To the
Pillar of the
cloud.
Sun,
Oh my
into
god.
the clouds where the dragon lives, because they're like, we need to find, there's a pillar on top of this, and there's this rumor that there's these 5 pillars all around the world that hold up Scepter, and once they're all gone, Scepter will fall. And the Gelmirians are like, well, we want it to fall because we need more land, because there's no more land on Scepter. It's a tiny little island. And
Oh,
everyone else is like, well, what if it falls really? What's that?
Is that the only thing in the whole world? Like this little ant? Like, is that the only people that
Yeah,
make
up in the sky, there's only this one island.
that's
That's
why?
it, and they don't know. And I could give you spoilers if you want about the real like kind of thing behind the game. Anyone, if anyone is watching that is part of this game, don't watch anymore. Um,
Oh yeah, everyone,
because
just so you
what?
know, this is just a game Allie was playing before this while we wait for people to tune in. So if you're wondering what we're
Yes,
talking about, just got here.
that's what this is. So the real truth is that like thousands and thousands of years ago, the world was like one thing, and there was this war between the gods. And as it went on, the gods were kind of split down the middle. And as it went on, the god of the sun, who's also the god of death, was killed. He was backstabbed by one of his like most trusted advisors, like a demigod
Caesar.
basically, who wanted his power. Huh?
Yep. I said he got
Yeah.
Caesar.
So yeah, pretty much. So he was killed, and because he's the god of the sun and the god of death, the sun went out.
Oh
So
wow.
all of a sudden the sun
The
went
sun and
out,
at the same
and
time. I
yes,
love
so
that.
the sun went out, and suddenly people couldn't die anymore, because the afterlife is this place called the Soul Lantern, and the Soul Lantern is the sun.
Yeah.
And the what keeps the sun burning is the cycle of souls going into it when they die and then leaving it when they're reborn. So there's like a whole cycle, and the sun stays lit because of this like soul fusion, basically.
I feel like that could be
So
what's really happening. Like I feel like that could be
yeah,
the life right there. Dude, I love this.
yeah, yeah. So you have to take. Tom helped me with this too, so you can thank Tom for that too.
Thank you.
He's sitting across from me and waving.
I figured he was close by.
Yes, he's right across from me. The wife of the god of death, who is this goddess named Kore. She's the goddess of fire and prophecy. She was like, well, this can't happen, because everyone's gonna die, and then no one is actually gonna die. We're just gonna be overrun with undead. Like, we need to stop this right now. So she got together this group of demigods, and was like, okay, I need all of you to sacrifice something to create these anchor points by which to relight the sun. And the way we're going to relight the sun is she went to this powerful mage and was like, hey, I know you're experimenting with like large scale teleporting things. I need you to surround this like land with 5 like points of magic, and then we're going to teleport that land into the sun. And when it gets to the sun, the people on that island living and dying are going to keep the sun lit.
That's so cool.
They just can never leave.
That's the scariest
so
like not dying and then having like, imagine having like a mortal wound and then keep on living.
Well, yeah, like that's the problem. So there were like undead people walking around. There were people who just couldn't die. Like, it was awful. So she uses these anchors. She has them all sacrifice something. All of the gods sacrifice a weapon or a staff, or a part of them. So one of them actually sacrifices his whole self to like catalyze the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
And she traps in order to save the rest of the gods, because basically this is going to like wipe out a whole bunch of stuff. She traps them in like the overworld, in like the gods realm, and she herself is like disembodied basically. So now Kore is like a disembodied soul that can possess people, and she possesses like her followers. She's the only god that exists anymore. So she has a whole bunch of followers, and she's now appearing in the game as this person called the Voice of the Flame, who like keeps showing up to give them stuff.
Ooh.
And the all of like the demigods that sacrifice things are now the warlock patrons. So like they're the ones giving power to all. No one can worship them really, but they have all of these things tied together. And there's a couple of gods that have escaped, and there's a whole bunch of other like minor things happening. But the point is that Scepter is that island that was teleported into the sun, and so they're in this like basically infinite plane of clouds, and there's no sun in the sky. It just gets light and dark as like the sun rises and sets, basically.
Yeah.
And they as like these pillars are falling because now there's people working actively against them. More portals are opening up in Scepter, like on this plane, and more people are leaving and coming down to this earth and like trying to do stuff. So
oh my
the
god,
whole
like,
idea is that they
people who are like, what? Like,
yeah. So I keep describing it. I'm like, every time they're like, oh wow, this place is so weird. I'm like, guys, you're aliens. You've
for
literally
real.
come down from the sky, and you're like, you don't look like anything that's around here, because at this point, like, evolution has diverged so much that like only like the humans are the same. There's all of the elves left with Scepter, so there's only one group of elves left on this world, and they're called the Shadar, and they're based off this group of elves called the Shadar Kai in like standard D&D. But I was like, okay, like they're like shadow elves. They're very pale. They have very dark hair and eyes. And one of the things about them is that they've been cursed by the gods for like working against them to destroy everything. So like all around them, there's they cause like the like plants and animals and things to die. So everywhere they go becomes a desert. So there's all of these like winding deserts as they travel, because they have to keep traveling. And if they stay in a place too long, like all of the water stops flowing, all of the plants die.
That's depressing,
And
man. Oh my gosh.
well, so they deal with it. They're fine, and they'll save them in the end. It's fine. But like it's great because like the kids they love it so much, and they're so into the story. Like one of the kids, Ben, actually, he was playing this character who was like a cartographer from Scepter, and he ended up leaving the party because he got sick of having to like do all of the things that Scepter wanted him to do. And he ended up going, and like they had picked up this NPC named Reza. He's a half Shadar, and he was a slave, and they freed him. And so he and Borogor like got into this cute little romance, and now they're off living on a farm together. And like
amidst all
it's
this,
the cutest thing. It's so cute.
This is
So
a perfect like introduction for you as a person. And just like
yes. I love stories. So yeah, so this game it's one of my favorite games that I've ever run. It's so cool. Right now they're up on top of the Pillar of the Sun, which is one of the big mountains. It's the pillar, and they're about to fight Ravoriath the White, who's a giant ice dragon. And I basically ended the game by being like, okay, so like you hear a roar, and this dragon like lands on the ice, and you hear it be like, I can smell you, and then it like causes this ice armor to like form all over it, and that's like part one of their boss fight, basically. So now they have to fight the boss in 3 parts, and then they're on top of like a volcano that's covered in ice, so the ice is going to smash. They're going to end up in the center of the volcano.
Oh my god.
I'm very excited about it. I have to build her, but I'm like super excited about it.
Do you draw at all? Because I'm like
I
visualizing
don't know.
in my head.
I'm very bad at that.
Tom.
I can write. I write a lot, and I can describe things.
Yeah.
I am not very good at drawing. I can make maps. Maps are the only thing I can draw. So
I've seen some of your maps. You make really nice maps, actually.
I'm very proud of my maps. I like them.
Beautiful. You should bring them in the map room one day.
I would love that. Oh my god.
Sick, right? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, all right. So this is Allie, everybody. This is who we're here to talk to today. My name is Alexis.
Hello, everyone.
Masterminds Adventures. We are a team of creative professionals who are conquering isolation and loneliness by building community through play. One of our initiatives is the Game Master for Hire program. Allie here is one of our Game Masters for Hire. She's epic. We're made up of storytellers, performers, and other creative individuals who are going to bring the world of role-playing games to life for you and your friends, no matter what your experience level. As I've said, today we're talking to Allie. So, Allie, I'm so happy to be here with you. I just love you.
I know. I've missed you so much.
I missed you, too. I was like so excited. I made Allie like a little altar.
I could tell.
Showing her. But that being said, Allie, do you want to just tell us about yourself, give us your origin story, and get right into it? We already know you're an amazing storyteller just from our little intro, but
I mean, maybe, I guess.
oh,
Okay, so my name is Allie Sulentic. I am a writer, a GM, a creative storyteller, all of those things. I'm actually Mastermind's Master of Lore. That's been my title for a long time, probably like 5 years. Um, and I'm one of like the founding members of Mastermind when we were just like 2 or 3 people in a room trying to figure out how to do all the stuff that we do. Um, so I guess the first thing that I did really with Mastermind is we used to actually I'm repping Camp Half Blood right now. Um, but
oh my God,
but it's
wore Camp Half Blood shirt. Ah,
yes, I did. I'm wearing my Camp Half Blood shirt.
I almost
um,
wore one.
so
We could have been twins.
yeah, well, I was like, I need a good shirt, and this is the one that I found. Um, so uh, so Camp Half Blood, when we were still doing in-person events, and we were kind of more of a local group rather than like the big kind of country-spanning thing we are now. Um, we did this thing called Camp Half Blood, and it was kind of like it was pitched as like a field day for homeschoolers, basically.
Mm.
But in the world of Percy Jackson, which a lot of kids were really, this was like 2015, I think. I think it's 2015, maybe 2014. I don't remember.
Not
Um,
was 2015. No, because it started the year before I came back. So it would have. Yeah, I think you're right.
yes,
14. Yeah.
yeah, I think
Then
so.
again, in
It's been a very long time. uh, so when we were starting to do this, Kristen asked me to write the story for it. So I came up with it. Me and my boyfriend at the time, but now my husband Tom, um, were we basically the two of us were the only actors there. I was playing Hestia, and Tom was playing I even forget his name. He was just playing the villain.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. And so we expected like maybe 20 people to show up, like 20 kids, and that was fine. Like 150 kids showed up, and we had no idea what we were doing. And we had to basically make this story work for a lot of people. And it was great. We had a great time. One of my favorite memories of that was like I snuck up on Tom, and I was wearing like this like full like I had like veils on and a big skirt, and so I snuck up on Tom with the kids because I was like, I need to steal back my box. He had like the box. He had Pandora's box, so I had to steal it back.
Oh yeah.
And so I went to go steal it from him, and he was like, "What? Like, how dare you try to steal from me?" And I was like, "Give that back! It's mine!" And then I forget exactly what happened because again, it's been a long time. But he ended up having to sprint across the field. Um, and 150 kids chased him with boffer weapons. And then they knocked him down and beat him with boffer weapons. And we eventually had to be like, okay, we're taking him into custody. He's fine. You don't need to actually like murder him, please.
Just good old
It
time
was
at Mastermind.
Yeah, it was really great. It was so much fun. So yeah, so that was like the first thing that I did with Mastermind, and it kind of went on from there. We did a bunch of stuff with Eagle's Claw, which is our Harry Potter inspired day long event. I do a lot of it. Like again, I'm the master of lore, so I've done a lot of like the creating the Mastermind lore and how it works. I came up with this ridiculous kind of mascot for Mastermind. The reason why we're Mastermind Adventures is because this guy named like Sir Mastermind was like he's like a adventurer from the like 1880s.
What?
He went missing. He was like he used to take people on these big tours, and he went missing going through one of his portals to like this fantasy world. And now like all of the masterminds are trying to find him, which is why we go to all of these different worlds and like bring kids there and help them like solve mysteries in them. So
I love that little piece
so
of lore. I didn't know
yeah, that was my, and like it never really went anywhere. Chris and I were actually talking the other day, and she was like, "We need a mascot," and I kept thinking about like this mastermind character you had. So I have to go through and actually like kind of work out the lore and make it work. But
that. Mhm.
that's kind of that was at least what I always thought of when I heard like Mastermind Adventures. It was this guy, like we were searching for this guy, and that's why we had to go to all these worlds, and we had portals and science things and fun stuff like that. Um, but yeah, so I do a lot of stuff with Mastermind. I also freelance write. I guess in my spare time. I do. I've contributed to a lot of stuff for the Dungeon Masters Guild on for Wizards of the Coast.
Mm.
Um, so I did the first thing that I did was this project called Uncaged, which is it's 4 volumes. They're all adventures and they're feminist adventures based around female monsters. So um, my particular story was about a dryad, which is a traditional female monster in D&D. Usually they tend to be more like the like seductive, like beautiful woman with leaves in her hair.
Mm-hmm.
And mine basically was she was traumatized and turned into like a vampire creature.
Ooh.
So she was just murdering people. It was a lot of fun to write that. Very cathartic. um,
Channeled a lot of
but
anger
like
on that one.
yeah. So my when I write, I tend to do a lot of I like to be very inclusive and very uh I don't even know how to really say it. Feminist, I guess.
Mm.
I mean I like to D&D and in particular D&D, but role playing in general has been such a male focused and dominated thing forever.
Mm.
And I now it's great now because D&D has gotten so popular that more women and more um, just not non men, I guess, is probably the best way to term it, are really getting involved in writing things and working on things, and the art is getting better and more inclusive, and the writing is getting better and more inclusive. Um, so that's kind of my philosophy when I'm both running and writing things. Is inclusivity is really important to me.
For
Um, Representation is really important to me, and particularly like bucking stereotypes, um, either like the kind of derogatory feminine stereotypes that tend to crop up a lot, like the beautiful elf princess in the bikini and
yeah.
the barbarian wearing a chainmail or like tube top, kind of stuff that isn't too progressive. um,
Yeah, are inclusive to
I
like
like to
different types of
yeah,
people.
like I just like to buck those stereotypes and um, like being a cisgendered straight woman. I can't really speak for a lot of the other kind of inclusive things I try to do, but I do try to like include a lot of like non-binary or neurodiverse characters in my games, just for representation. And a lot of the games that I run tend to be for teens or kids, and the great thing about that is that they're very accepting of a lot of like I mean
Doesn't
they're
even cross
making
their
the new world.
mind. Like, yeah,
Exactly.
kids have
So
all these differences. Like, it doesn't even come into
yeah,
their realm. It's one
yeah.
of the
So
coolest things.
like one of my favorite stories is when I was running the game that I was talking about earlier. I had them do this thing called the Hero Quest, which I blatantly stole from Glorantha, which is one of my favorite settings. Where basically they took on the roles of the demigods, like going to finish this. They were going to earn their power,
Hmm.
and they took on the role of these demigods to like learn what happened to them. And when I gave them the characters, and I was like, okay, I'm springing this on you guys. I know it's probably a little much, but like, here are your characters. You can decide whatever you want about them. And Sophia was like, she had this character called Krenderath, and I didn't put like genders or anything really more than like what they were going on this quest for and like what they could do. So Krenderath was a demigod of candlelight and safety. He's like the light in the dark. Um, and so I describe them as like they are just they're like quiet and withdrawn a little bit, but like they want to protect people. And I used a lot of like gender neutral they them pronouns for everyone because I didn't want to tell anyone what they were doing.
Yeah, that's something I've
And
noticed
Sophia
about
was
you
like,
for a long time, is that's very natural to you, is like your language, you have very masterful language, and it's something you do without
"Oh, thank you."
thinking. Like, it's very second nature, that it's just like, yeah, it's just like
Yeah,
is.
I
It
try.
is what it is. Yeah.
There's
Admire
one gender neutral character in one of the games that I run that I consistently call he, and I'm always like, I feel so awful because they're non-binary, and I have to be like, I can't. I have to stop doing this. I have to keep reminding myself. I have like a post-it that I keep up, that Patrius is a they them. Um, uh, but so as I was describing these characters, Sophia was like, she was already drawing her character. One of the things I love about these teens is that all of them illustrate things, so they've drawn so many pictures from my games. It's great. I should have given them some of you just to look at, but um, so she was like, can Krendorath be non-binary? And I was like, absolutely. Like, it's your character. You can do whatever you want. And she was like, okay, like Krendorath is non-binary, and like every time I bring in a character that's like that doesn't fit like kind of the gender stereotype, they always like they just love it so much.
Just
And
break it.
it's so encouraging because like when you try to do something like that sometimes with people who are a little older or more like I'm not trying to stereotype like older gamers. I'm one of them, but
No, but there is a
people
thing
who
like just being in
yeah,
like
like it's sometimes
in
it's people get
society.
set in their ways and it's hard for them to kind of think about things differently.
Yeah.
Um so like I try always to like I want people to be comfortable when I'm running their games, but I also want to I like giving people different experiences
Mm.
because I think that's so important. And role playing is such a great way to explore things about yourself and about the world and about everything really, and really to try things out before you're really comfortable with them.
Yeah.
And do it in a safe way that isn't necessarily going to, harm you or harm anyone else. It's so important. That's kind of the basis of Quest, which I can talk about it in a bit. Um, but like I love pushing those boundaries and like kind of making people confront things about the world they may not be
Yeah.
totally okay with, but like now have to look at like critically and say, well, like, what is the right thing to do? I love giving when I'm running games, I love to do I don't necessarily want to say difficult choices, but interesting choices.
Mm-hmm.
Things that aren't just black and white, just this guy's bad, this guy's good, which one do you want to help? But, maybe be like, both of these guys have good and bad things about them, and who are you going to help? Um, like which one are you going, like where do your stereotypes lie, and why are you always going to pick this guy over this guy, and all that kind of stuff.
Yes. That's one of
So
my favorite
I just
storytelling is like almost the anti-hero, or just like for me a character is so much more just attractive to me if there's some redemption available for them versus someone who can just do all these things like right away. Like I'm all of my favorite characters are like the dark, the anti-hero, you know what I mean? Because then
yes,
it's like the whole
yeah,
time you're like, what's gonna happen? Are they gonna go good? Are they gonna? It's so real, and we're all like see ourselves.
yeah,
Yeah, and I love. I've said this in a few of these, or we've talked about this just with the other GMs. Just I love what you said about having that. It's a safe area to be able to experience and like literally play out something that you might it's just an aspect of yourself you want to get to know, right?
yeah,
And that's what I love about the role play aspect is like you are going to get you kind of get to feel that out in a place that isn't dangerous, in a place that there aren't going to be
yeah,
real life consequences, but you get to feel that thought
exactly.
process in your mind.
Yeah, it's so good for like I mean I've advocated this forever, but like I one of the things that I mean I guess even before we started doing Camp Pathlon and all that, like probably 10 years ago, I used to run D&D for Seth and his friends.
Oh my god.
Seth is Kristen's son. He's on the spectrum, and a lot of his friends are on the spectrum or homeschooled, didn't have the best social skills, and Kristen and Jason asked me to run D&D for them because I was playing D&D at the time, and I was like, sure, let's do it. And like I would put them in situations that they wouldn't expect and like make them deal with people that they didn't really want to deal with, and like have consequences to their actions, and but let them like practice social skills in that
Mm-hmm.
like kind of a safer space, just a space where if they made someone angry, well, at least it's not a real person and they don't have to, they can look back on it and be like, well, how should I have handled that? you know what would be the best way to do it, and we can rewind time and they can try it again, and like just giving them a chance to practice that kind of stuff. And like we would notice the difference in kids who were very withdrawn and didn't want to do anything, didn't want to talk, and suddenly they were like playing a character that was really good at talking, so they had the confidence to like step up and do things. And it's such it's people don't think that, like, they think it's just a silly game, and
How
it's
effective it
you're just
is.
having fun, but
Yeah.
it's so effective as even just like a therapeutic tool.
Yeah,
That's
even
the whole
just
reason
thinking
why
about
we
like, oh, sorry, I get way too. I'm
no
getting
no
way
no
too
no
excited and cutting you off a
no
lot.
no this is a conversation. I love it.
But
But like,
like,
but that's why we used Quest, like
yeah,
to kind of, that was our idea, was that like it's a social skills game, but it's a game, and it gamifies those things that kids don't necessarily want to talk about or do. But if they're in a story and they're helping to create the story, it just, I don't know, it's something about it just like kind of unlocks that center in your brain that makes you like kind of feel withdrawn, and it
Mhm.
just makes you want to be like a more social person. I mean, I'm probably the poster child for that. I am not a social person at all. I get very nervous, but once I start talking about games and D&D and all of this stuff, like I open up.
Yeah,
So,
something you're truly
um,
passionate about, and then with people
yeah,
who,
well, yeah, it's definitely passion. Absolutely.
and that's like I when you're talking about that group of kids in particular, like Seth, I can't imagine getting like the luxury of getting to watch like Seth grow as a person just from watching him. He's such a I'm not even
He's
kidding, such a well-rounded
honestly
young
like
man.
yeah, and
Yeah,
I D&D was part of that because after we stopped our game, he started running a Pathfinder game, and he's been running games since then. Like he wouldn't have the experience that he does now
yeah,
without having like that kind of, and it's just great. It's like, it's that feeling you get when you're like an aunt and you're like, you've watched a child. I mean, like I used to babysit Seth when he was
that's so
like 4.
weird. Okay, that
Oh,
is.
and Luke too. I used to like rock. Actually, they used to live in the apartment I live in now, and I used to like rock him to sleep on like in my grandmother's rocking chair. So like I've been around them obviously their whole lives, and to see them grow from like where they were to where they are now is like it's so heartwarming because it's like they're like I feel like they're my little brothers or my little like nephews. Kristen calls me her sister all the time, and like that's what I feel like sometimes is
I
like
always feel like your
you know
sister. I forget that you're not, honestly.
yeah, that
Yeah,
everyone thinks that. Yeah, no,
yeah.
we're cousins, we're just cousins, um
Great
but
family.
yeah, but I mean, Kristen's great, she's amazing. I hope she's watching this right now. I love you, Kristen.
This is gonna be one big love fest. But I know, like, I really
I know.
miss those kids, and then like, because I had been at the board game lounge and seen them
Yeah.
interact and like got to see them grow a little bit. But I worked with Seth one summer, and I swear I have never taken so many notes on how to like conduct my behavior towards kids. And I mean, Seth is
Hmm.
younger than me, and he is leaps and bounds ahead in that.
Yeah.
Like, it's so impressive. So when you even say that there was a time of like, oh, developing social skills and like all those kids, like it's just they're so amazing now. And I mean
They
all of
are.
them, and that it's like,
All of them are like all of the kids around Seth, like Simon and Lucas and Abe, like all of them went from being kind of these like kind of shy, withdrawn kids into being these like just titans of creativity. It's just amazing.
yeah, and the
So
leadership skills that just blow my mind. It's so like there's such an air of
that's
fairness and working
and
together,
like
and it's so
yeah,
yeah, it's really just impressive. It's awesome to
yeah,
watch.
it is. Yeah. So I'm glad that I could be a part of it. Mastermind is like one of the most important thing I think that I've ever done or that has happened to me. It's been quite a transition time moving from kind of the more in-person stuff into more virtual things and introducing so many new people to the group. It's been a transition, and it hasn't been necessarily easy. It hasn't been difficult either, but it's been a change, and I'm just glad that I get to continue to be a part of it. I mean, it's just I mean, I'm getting a little sentimental now, but like it's so
Keep
important
it.
to me, and what Mastermind does is so important, I think. And I'm glad that more people are getting to experience it now, just to be there and be a part of it. So
Yeah. And it's really cool to see that during this time period of coronavirus and a time that so many people have or it can just be taken to just darkness, dark areas. It really has.
yeah,
I feel like Mastermind has stayed glowing and has even grown in this time, and that makes me. It's just so. It's
yeah.
such a good feeling to know such
Well,
a genuine group of people are like still there,
yeah,
late and growing amidst all of this.
yeah. Like battling isolation. Like, I mean, I
Yeah,
think that's an important thing, even in the best of times. But like in a time when we're physically isolated from each other,
yeah,
having a chance to like just sit down and play a game with your friends, even if it's virtually, is so important, and it's so great just to know that like we can be a part of that. We can help facilitate that. So
yeah. It feels very in alignment, just working with these people, and just it
yes,
feels, it, yeah. So that
every
actually.
single like
Oh no,
okay,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No,
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 go.
no,
I
no,
was
you
gonna
go.
transition, so I want to hear what you have to say.
No, well, I was gonna say that every person that like I helped interview for the Jam for Hire program, and like all the people that we pulled in who have been masterminds and like have like kind of officially joined the crew, like every single one of them, I was always like, they're all so amazing. They're all perfect for this.
Rock
Like,
stars, just rock
you
stars.
know, like it's so interesting to see that, like, because you know, like you can feel like you're in an echo chamber, and you when people around you agree with you all the time because you work in sync so well. It can feel sometimes it feels like, well, does everyone feel like this? Are we actually hitting
Is
important
this
things?
real? Is this really real life right
And
now?
to see so many people who like want to be a part of this and fit so well into the group is
Yeah.
just like it's so heartwarming.
But we are so different. Like that was my favorite thing about being at the board game lounge when we were all together. And I
Yeah.
mean, now doing these interviews, like everyone is so saturated with awesomeness and things that I can pick apart and be like, oh, this part, because you know, there's different
Yes.
parts of yourself, and it's almost like each person is a doorway to that part of yourself that you get to like just be with that for a while.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I mean, I just remember we're characters. We're a group of characters, and I remember the people who would come in, like everyone had vastly different experience in life, different places they had been.
Oh
Some of
yeah.
them were into history and didn't care a lick about like games and whatnot. Some of them were into like sword fighting and then role playing, and then there was funky like, you know, there was the littles and then the stuff I did, and it's like even me, I feel like I have a different areas of like what I engage with typically, as opposed to like you guys brought me into the world of gaming, you know, I wasn't into that
Yeah.
before, but it still felt like such a right mesh, like it, and I think
Hmm.
it goes to those initiatives of like openness and fun and just be willing to like to accept everyone, and like we're all at our core, we're all like we're nerds, and we're people who have probably not fit in at one point, or we're people who are searchers and like trying to find other things, right? Like, and I think
I've
that,
always said that if Mastermind was around when I was a kid, my life would be totally different. Like,
yeah,
just because, like, as a kid who was super nerdy and like to read books more than play sports, and you know was writing stories and taping them to their wall, like it's so
same.
great to see. It's great to facilitate a place that's welcoming to every kind of kid, and that will let them be themselves and not be afraid to be themselves. Like,
Mm.
it's so important. I mean, it just is. It's so important, and I
It's
love that we can
beautiful.
be a part of that.
Yeah, it's a real beautiful thing, and I think same. It's like
Yeah.
for me, like that was a real solitary and isolated world in mine, and I feel like I came to stories and lore and loving games and just loving almost like it was I loved the like the detachment aspect of it, so that's kind of
Yep.
all I ever knew of like of that world, you know. I didn't really find my people except for here and there, you know, at
Yeah.
maybe at a summer camp one year or something, you know, that brought you together, or going to a board game lounge. And
Hmm.
then so like just to see this, I remember being so wowed just seeing this happen, because it's like you couldn't even imagine that we were kids. I don't know about you, but for me I was like, this is a possibility. Like this is a thing. This
Yeah.
felt so great when I was growing up, because it takes. I think a lot of people do use like stories for escapism, but when you can find a community who does the same thing, it opens it
Hmm.
up. It opens it up to like take the negativity out of that, you know?
Yeah.
It's so cool. So we're just
I
nerding. We
agree.
love masterminds here. We're
Yes.
big fans. At least
Exactly.
so I was gonna ask you next about like your personal. I mean, we kind of touched on this. Just if there's anything you want to add, it was your personal missions for the games that you're conducting at Masterminds and like your ethics and whatnot. You went through a lot of that though, so we can jump right into
Yeah.
the campaigns if you'd like.
Yeah. So I have my Fallen World campaign, as I've been calling it, for the teens. That's the big one that I'm running right now. I had another game for younger kids, which I love working with kids and that kind of stuff. Little kids, I mean, you know, you worked with a lot of the minis, the mini masterminds. Um,
Freaky how big
Killian, I'm sure
they
you
are now.
remember Killian.
Oh my gosh, it's so creepy how big they are now. Like not
I
creepy, it's
know.
beautiful, it's a great thing. But I'm just like, can't you just like I remember you running under tables
Just
and like
yes,
I'm
just be
like,
little again, please.
yeah, can we go back? Because this is too hard. I saw a picture of Jen's kids like not that long ago, and they got so tall. It was like so
I
tall.
know.
I'm like, oh, I won't say
I
their
know.
names
Like
or
it's
anything, but I'm like, oh,
I
well,
know. But like but I yeah, so I was I was running a game for younger kids. It was basically ages like 10 and under. And I had to end up I had to pass it off to someone else. Thank you, Laura. Um, because I ended up with not enough time. I have a lot of like other minor deadline things going
You're
on. I had a big one. I'm busy. Yes, I'm very busy.
busy.
um, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I have to do, but I had to pass off one of them, which I hated because I loved those kids and I loved playing with them. But I just didn't have time to plan a second game. I play in a bunch of games at in like my home games. Tom runs a game for us. I run a game for some other friends. So the one that I have right now that is currently running is the kids game, like the teens game. Um, and I don't have any up right now, but I'm a big fan of like I like to call them like top shelf games.
Mm.
Just because not because they're better than other games, but because they're my favorites and I put them up on my top
Ah,
shelf on my
they're
big
Allie's
game
top
book.
shelf games.
They're my top shelf games. They're the ones I bring out when I want to impress people. But I have like
Proud of you.
I collect RPGs.
Yeah.
I just have so many of them. And I tend to like games that are very much focused on like storytelling, and a lot of them are very like mythic fantasy, or just like they're different from like your standard fantasy. I mean, I love Tolkien and like standard fantasy like that. The Silmarillion is
Mm.
one of my favorite books ever. Which just catapults me into like mega nerd status. Like no one says that their favorite book is the Silmarillion. Um, but
I
it's
admire
mine, and I accept being the largest of nerds. Um,
you wear that crown
so
beautifully, like, so well.
thank you.
You're
I have
welcome.
a couple crowns. I should go put one on.
You I should get
So
a print of your crown. We'll just like
right, queen of the nerds. Um,
What are
so
some of your favorite top shelf games? Now I'm curious.
so my absolute favorite game is probably this game called Exalted.
Mm.
It's a White Wolf game. It's on its third edition right now. And it's a I love the setting because the setting, one of the great things about the setting is that you can do basically anything in the setting. Like I used to play this game with one of my friends who she would just name like a random thing, and I'd be like, I can do that in Exalted, and then explain exactly how I would do it. But it's a game about it's a mythic fantasy game.
Mm.
It's set on a flat Earth, like a flat world, where the bounds of the world is chaos, is literal chaos. Anything can happen out there. And it's like it's a little bit post apocalyptic. um, but what it is that the world was created by these things called uh, the primordials, and they were just big, like they were more concepts than everything. Like one of them was just the ocean, like
Oh
she was
yeah,
just an ocean. She was
like
the sea that
true,
marched against the flame.
true classic
There was one that was
mythology, free mythology
yeah,
mythology. Love it.
very classic, like Titan, like oh, like it's this
Mm.
mountain, or
The
like this river
giants.
that encircles the world. Yeah,
Yeah.
so there were these big concept like creatures. Not even really creatures. They could create
I
and destroy whatever they wanted. And they created the gods because they were like, we don't want to deal with having to run this world. We made it, but we're bored now. And we're gonna go
it's a
up to
lot.
heaven, and you guys can control it or just do what we want you to do. And they put this gesh on them to basically say the gods can't rise up against us and like throw us over. Okay, so the gods were like, this is great, and then but they got sick of like picking up the trash that the primordials left everywhere. So like the primordials would be like, oh, what would happen if I took like the elemental pole of fire and just moved it like 600 yards to the west? And it would make a lot of bad things happen, and people would die, and like creatures would get blown up, and the whole land would change, and the gods would have to like drag it back into place. And they were like, we're sick of cleaning up after them, but we
Yeah.
can't rise up against them. So why don't we take the mortals, who like to the primordials, mortal creatures were basically ants. They
Mm.
were they were incidentally created via like a random thing that happened, and they don't really pay too much attention to them. And so the gods were like, we're going to give some of our power to these mortals, and we're going to make them into exalted.
Mm.
They're basically like they have the power of the gods. There's the god of the sun, the goddess of the moon, the five goddesses of the stars, and then the goddess of the primordial of the earth who joined the gods because she was like, I hate that they keep wrecking my body. Um, so they made these things called Solar Exalted and Lunar Exalted and Sidereal Exalted, and then the Dragon Bloods, which are the earth-blooded ones. They had elemental blood, and they trained them how to fight. And then they were like, go fight the primordials. And so like, there's this funny image that I always have in my head of like this primordial just like kind of hanging around, like this literally like the river that circles the earth and like keeps the chaos from coming in, minding her own business, just destroying some stuff, like you do.
Yep.
And like this ant comes up to her and is like, hey, stop it. And she's like, what are you gonna do to me? And then he punches her. And she's like, how did you punch me? I'm a river. And he's like, I can punch rivers in half.
I'm like, how?
And so the cool thing about Exalted is like built into the rules is this thing called stunting, which if you describe something cool enough and everyone at the table is like, wow, that sounds really cool, you get bonuses in game. So like you would get extra dice to roll to like get a bonus on your attack. So it encourages you to like tell really interesting stories and be like super epic. Like a lot of the stuff that they say to look at is like wuxia films with like wire fighting, or like a lot of like Chinese fantasy, like like people in kimonos shooting fireballs. Like big video games like
sorry,
yeah, just like it's epic fantasy
genre, like
yeah,
that,
like
old Asian, like Japanese in particular. Like I think it was something weird that got me into that. It was something like I was watching Kill Bill or something, and I was like, what was the inspiration for that? So I watched all the movies that were the inspiration. Oh my god, that style of fighting and just what they do, and it is like it encourages them to think out of the box to be able to create concepts like that.
Yeah, so you end up, and the world of Exalted, creation is like, it's enormous, just enormous. And so like you can do anything you want there. There's all these pockets of creation that have never been kind of described, so you can just put whatever you want there. I ran a game for Tom and a couple of our friends, just like a little game to get used to 3rd edition, and we were looking at the map, which is huge, and like Tom pointed to something and he's like, can we be from Dorito Island? And I was like, Dorito Island. And there's this little like triangle shaped island up in the corner. It looks like a Dorito. I was like, it looked like someone dropped a Dorito on the map and was like, that works. Like,
I want to be.
So that's Dorito Island.
I just want to be like covered in red cheesy dust all the time. And
right? Yeah. It was in the north, so it was a cool ranch island because it was snow everywhere.
Even better.
Yeah. So anything you can kind of conceive of like being like just you can do such weird stuff with it, and I love it. Like the Sidereals are my favorite because Sidereals are fate ninjas. They control the Loom of Fate, or they can read the Loom of Fate and like adjust things. And one of their like magical abilities is this thing called Avoidance Kata, which is my favorite charm. That like it's basically a magical spell. And it's if you walk into like if you open up a door and you walk inside and like you're talking to someone and then like a demon crashes through the wall and like tries to kill you, you can just be like, I wasn't there, and time rearranges itself so that you never walked in there.
That's so cool. Oh my god.
So like it's so funny, and like you can do so much with it, and I love it so much. It's gone through a couple of like interesting iterations, and I think they've kind of gone back to their roots with 3rd edition, which is great. It has its issues. It's a very big book. But that's probably my favorite like overall thing. But I have a bunch of like I guess like pop culture tie-in ones. Like I have Edge of the Empire / Age of Rebellion for Star Wars, or Force and Destiny. I think that's the last one. I've run the Dragon Age role-playing game, which I think is like one of the most elegant games I've ever played. Stop shaking your hand at me, Tom. I play a lot of like Pathfinder and 5th edition D&D. I started with 3rd edition D&D in college, so Pathfinder in particular is like a favorite of mine. I don't really discriminate when it comes to games. So like some people really like crunchy games that are like really like there's a lot of rules to them, and some people like really like fluffy games that have a lot of story. And I like both of them. So that's like I have so many games. One of my favorites that I really want to run is called Burning Wheel, which is a really interesting character creation thing where you choose life paths to create your backstory.
Oh,
And that informs like the kind of skill, like you could start off as like a street kid and
okay.
then become
I'm
a
gonna ask
baker's
you what
apprentice
like path.
and then like go work in the palace as a chef and then like marry into nobility and become like a noble. It's really interesting. Um, so I really like that aspect of like that creation. And then there's a spin-off of Burning Wheel called Mouse Guard, which I don't know if you've interviewed Sarah yet, but she's run like a 3-year campaign of Mouse Guard. Basically, you're a mouse. It's Redwall. If you've ever read the Redwall series, which I was obsessed with as a child.
I haven't. Let me write it down. Quick side note. Have you ever read the
Yes.
Chemical Garden trilogy?
No.
Okay, there that had
I'm gonna write that
similarities
down.
to yeah, okay.
I'm gonna write it down.
We're like, you're
This is what
done.
we're doing. This is an interview, right?
Yeah, totally. We are on point. We're doing really well. We've hit
Yes.
everything we
There we go.
I knew this
So
was
yeah.
gonna
So like.
happen and I was thrilled about it, so I don't even care.
Yeah, I would say like the one game that I've basically said I will never play again is Shadowrun, not because I don't like Cyberpunk, but because I think the game system is very very it hasn't been remade. It's I have a lot of thoughts about it. It's probably too much to get into now.
Yeah,
Stop
we'll
staring at
get
me,
into a
Tom.
Sixth
whole.
edition is out.
Yeah.
So speaking of
So
which, oops, sorry, I'm like
no, go ahead. Go.
all
Go.
over. I get like so.
You're the one conducting the interview.
I know, but I don't want to stop. Like every time I'm like, no, I want to hear now.
No.
I get more and more questions, and I lose them as I go on. I'm gonna start taking
Oh,
notes. But
yes.
so, as someone who has done different generations of games, what do you think are
Mhm.
the positive and negative aspects of traveling through those worlds? Like, what helps you as a game master, and are there any things from doing that that might like hold you back?
Well, I guess in terms of looking at like different editions of games, like is that kind of what you want to talk about? Like
Yeah,
going
like
from
I know
edition
that
to
you do like
edition or
yeah, does it change kind of your thought process or how you go about conducting a game if it's a different edition, or do you ever get stuck
a
up in
different like system? Yeah.
yeah, a
Okay,
different
yeah.
system? Yeah,
So I when I read whenever I think of a story, like I tend to think of the story, the kind of game that I want to run first before I pick out a system
yeah.
because certain systems are really good at telling certain kinds of stories and I think I'm going to kind of get on a soapbox here, but one of the things that I think is an issue with gaming in general right now is that
Mm-hmm.
people try to bash a system to fit a game concept that it's not supposed to fit.
Mm.
So there's a big thing now in kind of the D&D community as to like when you want to run a game that is not explicitly like a D&D game,
Mm-hmm.
what should you do? Because so many people are coming into like 5th edition D&D, and 5th edition D&D is a great system. It's not my favorite edition because I think that there's problem. I mean, every system has problems.
Mm.
Um, but so people are coming into it and saying, "Well, I've been playing 5th edition D&D. It's been a standard game. We've been running, Horde of the Dragon Queen, or Baldur's Gate, you know, Descent into Avernus, and now we want to run like a modern game about like everyone has got it's like a modern fantasy game or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, you know. And they're like, great, we're going to use D&D, but we're going to completely homebrew everything about it to
Oh
make
yeah.
it fit that genre. And I'm like, but there's so many other games out there, so many indie games and game even big name games
Mm-hmm.
put by big name publishers that are just not getting the kind of recognition they deserve for
Yeah,
doing
maybe
something like
better.
that, making a modern fantasy game that has guns and also elves and stuff like that, or like, I mean, there's so many different things, and people aren't using it because they're like, well, we can just take D&D and make it fit.
Yeah, you get comfortable too.
And
You get
so,
comfortable with what you're used to and what you're like, well, there's already
yeah,
a great audience for this, so let's just suck it into anything. But there might be something
and
else
like, and
that for you
I
that
mean, my opinion is like, do whatever you want. Like,
mm,
don't stop yourself from doing something just because you don't feel like the system you're using doesn't fit it. You can make it work.
yeah.
You might have to do more work, but the other side of it is that you should branch out a little bit. You should try something. Like,
The
don't
world is
don't not
vast.
yeah, like don't not try a new system just because you don't know it. Because like at one point you didn't know D&D and now you know it well enough to try to bash something into place. So, like, don't ever let the system stop you, but don't let the story, like, don't let your own, I guess, comfort stop you from branching out and trying a new thing.
Yeah.
So
I think
like, so when I'm thinking
that.
about a story, like, I think about the story that I want to run, the type of story I want to run, and then think of the system that might fit that best.
Cool.
Like, I run a game for my friends, in this system called Scion, which is where you're basically playing demigods. You're playing the children of the gods, or like the chosen of the gods, and they, like, like Zeus and Hera and Mars, and like, Thor and all these things. It's really fun. It's like great, like, multi-pantheon, interesting world.
Yeah.
And when I was like, they asked me to Tom asked me to run it for our friends, and they were like, yeah, we want to try it. And I was like, cool. I want to get you guys to try new systems, because we often don't. We play Pathfinder, we don't really branch out from that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like, I had to kind of come up with a story set in that world, because I didn't have the luxury of choosing my own system to run the game, and it works out and it's great.
But
And I love it.
so
But like, that
many,
was,
so you're probably like, dirt, 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 dirt. We could be
well,
doing
that's
this.
the other thing too, is that like, I read RPGs for fun, and like, I love doing all that stuff, and I love doing systems and homebrewing stuff. And I mean, that's part my freelance career is basically around homebrewing and writing adventures and coming up with stats for things. So
Such an epic
so I
life.
love that stuff. It's
Yeah.
I mean, it's a frustrating life sometimes.
You are the number
um
one person to go to for any game manual questions. Like that's, I feel like you
yeah,
know
that is my
all,
thing. Yeah,
yeah,
I've always been like
all
that.
the
When I was
rules
a
from
kid,
the
my
ground.
parents used to have me read the manuals, like, the for all of our appliances, so that someone would know how to use it. And so, like, when the dishwasher broke, I'd have to be the one to, like, figure out what's wrong with it.
Because that's why you have
I could,
kids.
like,
That's
yeah,
they can
exactly.
fix the
So,
dryer, the
but
dishwasher.
yeah, I love, like, I do have a very good head for rules, and I can usually, like, parse rules really well.
Yeah.
So like, at the board game lounge, like, I was a game concierge. If you had a question or wanted to figure out a game to play, I could pick one out for you if like, you told me what your preferences were. So
Life saving many a times, many a times. I'm like, this game is
yeah,
easy
it's just,
playing with 6-year-olds. Oh no, wait, this is a lot. Hold on.
no. There is definitely a talent for, like explaining how to play something.
Yeah.
Kristen always says that. She's like, why do I even try to explain things? I should just have Allie explain it. And I'm like, well, you don't tell me beforehand. I would have it ready to go if you told me beforehand. I can't just in the middle be like, I need to read the rules and parse them. Um,
But
so
I do
yeah.
think there's like a cognitive change that happens in the brain from playing games and from just like from your mind working from
Yeah,
that view. I can see it in people. Like I can see that change, that difference between someone who does spend like regular time engaging in play, engaging in reading, engaging in just having to
it's
look at
stimulating.
concepts and patterns differently. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
stimulates your brain. It's good for your brain. It keeps your neural pathways active.
I was
It's
reading I was just reading an
yeah.
article about that, and I find that's something so few people know. I think about how we were
Hmm.
saying so many people look at it like it's just play, like it's just a silliness, but it's actually an integral part of how humans grow, and we're
It
capable
is.
of so
Yeah.
much more. Yeah,
Yep.
it's also cool. Just had a little moment of silence for like all the
I
things.
know. All the awesome things about everything.
Can you tell me a little bit about your books and writing? I've got some artwork here. I'm actually gonna
Oh
pop.
yes, yeah. I gave you the titles.
Yeah.
So yeah. So the first that I kind of mentioned this before. The first thing that I really contributed to is the Uncaged quadrology. Um, so um, Uncaged is all about, like, feminist views of things, and then from there, a lot of the other books I've contributed to are with people who also worked on Uncaged. We have kind of a community, and we pitch ideas to each other and, like, work together,
Mhm.
collaborating. Book of Seasons is up here right now, and I love Book of Seasons. It's so much fun. They're seasonal themed adventures. So you have solstices, which is summer and winter solstices, and then equinoxes, which is spring and fall equinoxes. And I was lucky enough to actually get to write a story for each of them. They asked for volunteers to, like, they were like, oh, we had someone drop out. We need someone to write an equinox story. And I was like, I'll do it. So my so my the solstice story I wrote a winter solstice story, and it's probably one of my favorite adventures that I ever wrote. I mean, I say this about a lot of my adventures, but this one in particular, it's called Pearls Before Swine, and it's a knitting adventure because I like to knit. Um, so in it, it's like a first level adventure. In it, the players come to this town after like getting hired by the local priest in town, who's like, "We have a witch, and she cursed our village. We need someone to fix it." And when they get there, they find that like most of the adults that aren't hiding have been turned into like animals, pigs and rabbits and cats and fish and all of that.
Mm.
It's winter time, and like there's just all of these like animals running around. And so they go to the priest, and the priest is like, "You need to go talk to the witch, or stop her from doing this because she's ruining our lives. Chaos is everywhere, and she's like a fey witch. She's ruining everything." And so as the players kind of go around the village, they like help solve problems. They talk to some of the villagers, and they like eventually they get to talk to the witch, and the witch is like, "Oh, well, I didn't curse anyone. I sent them all gifts. I knit them all like winter clothing, hats and gloves and scarves, and I had my fairy friends drop them off. So I haven't been down there since then. Like, what happened?" And so they tell what happened, that like there's pigs running around everywhere and people are getting turned into things. And she like calls all of her fae friends together, and she's like, "What happened?"
You
And
trickster.
they're like, "Well, we gave all of the presents to the people and everyone liked them, but then the priest was like, these are gifts from the witch, and she's bad, she's evil because she's chaos and I'm order, and so you need to throw them all out because she's clearly going to do bad stuff to you." And
Mm.
so all of the adults got so afraid that they were like, "Oh, we're going to throw them out."
Mm.
And they gathered up everything and they threw them out into the woods. And the fairies found this, and they were like, "Our
Rude.
friend, our like good friend, our old lady friend
Yeah.
spent so much time working on these things, and they just got thrown out. No one appreciates her. We're going to force them to appreciate her." And
Oh,
they start turning everyone into pigs and rabbits and foxes and things like that.
I knew they were. I knew they were at the core of it. I knew
Yeah.
it.
So in the end, like they release the curse. It's the funny thing is that they have to take the discarded like hats and scarves and things and go find like the pigs and put them on the pigs to get them to stop being pigs. It's really fun. But like the moral of the story is that all most of the children in the town, yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
that most of the children in the town, actually are like, "No, we like the old lady. Like she gives us candy. She's really nice. She like helps us build snowballs and snowmen, and
We have
we
fun.
love all this stuff." So like all of the fairies are helping the kids play outside and like build snowmen, and there's a point where you can get into like a snowball fight with some satyrs. And so like there's two ways to approach everything, to be like either, "Oh, the fae are bad and we need to stop them," or like maybe we should try to see both sides of the story. And that's like kind of the story there.
Yeah.
um
I love that open
my
the perspective. We can take this
Yeah,
one way, we can take it the other way, but that's you get to explore this vast array of perspectives, and it doesn't mean anyone is right or wrong.
yeah, exactly. Like there's multiple ways to approach it.
Yeah.
The one I wrote for Equinox is I call it my back to school adventure, because everyone, like, so I was writing a fall adventure and everyone was like, "Oh, fall Halloween, write a
Mm-hmm.
Halloween story." And I was like, "I don't want to write a Halloween story. Like I'm not a person who loves Halloween. I just, it's not
Really?
my thing."
Oh, then
Really, yeah,
we'll be
I
fine.
know.
We'll
Like
get to play
blasphemy.
and dress up all year long. So I guess we'll
Yeah,
be
I mean that's also part of it.
yes.
Um so I was like, I don't want to write a Halloween adventure. So I started thinking like, "Oh, maybe I'll write a back to school adventure." And what
Oh.
what about back to school can I make about this? So I came up with this story where I basically, if you've ever seen, I forget the name of it, like like the Skull and Bones Society, like the secret
Yeah.
societies of like
I know.
colleges. So it's
Yeah.
basically it was a story themed about that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was basically this like group of disgruntled students who wanted to destroy the college they were part of because they were so in debt to the college. that they were like, our lives are ruined. We're just going to destroy the college, and then we won't have to pay back our student loans.
Taking.
And so,
Let's see.
so they were summoning this demon, and in the story there's like it's homecoming, um, and uh, and they go to this festival, this homecoming festival, and in it, like, they meet someone who's like, my sister's gone missing and I don't know where she is. Like, the last time we heard from her, she was like doing really badly in school and she was going to get kicked out, and you know, we need to find her. So they go on this adventure where like they get, like, someone gets kidnapped and they have to find like this secret maze, and they get down to the bottom and they have like 5 minutes. You start timing them from like the point where they enter the maze, and every time they take a wrong turn they lose time, and eventually they get to the bottom and they have to fight this cult and stop them from sacrificing someone to summon this big monster. And my favorite part is that, and I'm kind of playing up my own part in it, but in the end, it's so like the idea is that like the good ending is that they stop the summoning, then they don't, the demon doesn't get summoned. But the bad ending is they're just a little bit too late and the demon gets summoned. And then I was like, they have no choice but to run, because it's built for 7th level characters.
Yeah.
And the monster that they fight is like level 21, like it's CR 21.
Then no chance.
It's what's called a Garistro. It's a big demon bull. And so I'm like, yeah, okay, like they just have to run because the school's done for. It's this massive creature that just starts destroying everything.
Yeah.
And I put in my author's notes, because at the end of every adventure, there's usually a space for author's notes in these books because they're collaborations. Mm-hmm. And I was like, if anyone has run this and their players have not stopped the demon and they have to run away from it, please find me on Twitter, because I really want to hear about that, because like that
I have to know.
I wanted that to happen. I wanted it to happen, but
I crave the chaotic endings as well too. Like, I kind of love when everything is just like flip the board.
Everything just goes crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the best. I think we had a couple instances like that at Eagle's Claw where it was just like we had intended these little side quests to go a certain way. Kids
no plan survives. Yeah, no adventure survives contact with the players.
No.
Just because it's impossible. So I also, one of the books that was shown there was it's called Friends, Foes, and Other Fine Folks. And it is it's a collection of NPCs. So one of the things that a lot of the people that I work with, a lot of them are women or non-binary or LGBTQ or neurodiverse. The uncaged community is amazing. I mean, the D&D community is amazing in general, but the uncaged community in particular is amazing because there's so many different views and so many different aspects to things. Like, I've learned so much about just people and like interacting with people that I normally wouldn't have had the chance to. Mm-hmm. It's kind of amazing. Like, I'm blown away by just the stories of some of these people.
Yeah. It expands your realm of possibility for a gameplay when you have those.
It does, yeah. It's maybe a better player and a better GM just by hearing people. Like, there was one point where I was writing a story with a non-binary character as like the center point of it, and I was like, is it themselves or themself? Like, I couldn't figure it out, and I looked it up, and I was like, there's two worlds of thought about it.
Yeah.
I'm not non-binary. I'm not going to make that choice. So I actually went to there and I was like, hey guys,
what do I do?
Can someone weigh in on this? Because I'm not qualified to make this decision. I feel I just need someone to like tell me which one you use and which one you don't. And it ended up starting this amazing conversation where everyone's like, I never thought about that. Like, someone's like, I'm non-binary and I don't know which one is right. Are they both right? Which one is better? It was so amazing because it was like everyone was learning at the same time, and like I got such a great perspective from different people talking, like,
and to be able to ask the question, like, you could just ask the question.
Yeah.
Openness to discussion. I think we miss that so much. It's like, I think there's fear. There's so much fear, and I think that's something I do that it's almost absent-minded, like childlike, because I don't think there's anything wrong with asking questions. Like, the part of my brain that's like, this is inappropriate or this is wrong or you shouldn't talk about this, that's missing from me. So like whenever I don't know something, especially if it's controversial, I'm like, I'll just ask everybody and someone will tell me some things.
Yeah.
And like,
Well,
it
so
works, guys.
like
It works.
my
Like,
thought is that like so like and I've heard this from a lot of people that I interact with, people in the community and elsewhere, that like the one thing that you have to watch out for when you're asking questions to a minority group or just a more disenfranchised group than yours, whenever you're basically asking a question to someone less privileged than you, you should always try to do the research first yourself, because like it's not like on someone non-binary to explain how to be non-binary to you. Like and one, it's such a personal thing anyway, but two,
mm-hmm.
like it's not like their responsibility to teach you. It's your responsibility to come to them with an informed question.
Mm.
Which is why, like, and I because I and I'm just I don't want to do, like, it's it's so hard to like put this into words.
It's okay.
I don't want to make them do any more emotional work than they have to, I
Yeah.
guess, is my thought. Like, don't it's not their job to educate you. It's your job to educate yourself. And yes, there are plenty of places where you can ask questions and like
Yeah, let me
and be
rephrase
that and
that.
be
The
like that. And it's
2%,
best
like people
it's
you
best to
know that
hear
are
it
gonna
from
be
someone.
okay. Like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But it's not on, like, you shouldn't ask people to explain their lives and how they live, because like it's their life. And two,
They're
everyone's
not
perspective
obligated
is
to
unique.
tell you.
One
Yeah.
person, like one if you're talking to like one, like, like gay man, and then ask the same question to another gay man, they're
They're
probably going to
still
give you
different
two different.
people.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
everyone is unique and everyone's different, so like you can't even you should get as many perspectives as possible in order to understand how it feels. And you also need to basically sit back and say, well, not being a part of this community, I'm never gonna it's not on me to try to figure it out for myself. I should be asking people and giving them a voice
Mm.
and letting them explain it, because like it's not my place to explain to someone how they live.
Yeah.
um
And
and
it's
like
a
I've gotten
healthy
into like
approach,
arguments with
right?
people about it, because like I feel strongly that like, like everyone's perspective is unique, and you can't tell someone how they experience the world and experience life. And in a similar way, your questions should be, as long as they're coming from a good place,
Yeah,
like
if your
a
intention
place
is
of wanting to
valuable,
learn, a place
for
of
sure.
compassion and empathy. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
important.
Mm-hmm.
So many people ask these questions, and I'm certainly not trying to say that you do that, because I know you're an amazingly empathetic
No,
person.
I'm actually getting a lot of knowledge just from like taking this in. I'm like, no, that's a good point. I didn't think about that
Yeah,
before because
it's
I
it's
am like
it's
so
only because like I know people who have like said, to not to me, but to like have said out loud that like one of the things they hate is when like someone expects them to have to like to explain this aspect of LGBTQ life.
yeah.
And because like they're like, why do I always have to explain to someone how to live my life? Like, I don't ask you how to be a white woman. Like,
Yeah. And
like it's
personal boundaries, just like
yeah,
each person's gonna have a
it's
different
emotional labor. Like, you don't
yeah.
want to put too much emotional labor on someone, because like a lot of times their lives are hard enough, and they have to do so much more emotional labor just to exist and just to be comfortable, that
Yeah.
like you should be you should be kind and empathetic to people, and not make them justify their reason for being alive. This is
Definitely
getting into a lot of like,
baseline skills there. Baseline just like
yes,
good
but
human
I'll get off my soapbox.
No, I
Friends,
like
Foes, and
it.
Other Fine Folks was like the catalyst for it was making inclusive NPCs, and
Mhm.
making think people then and groups of people that you can just drop into your game if you're looking for a perspective that you don't necessarily have.
Mhm.
And they have detailed bios, they have stats, some of them, and they're basically just like, hey, if you want this, like, what one of my favorites, there's an asexual princess. She's hilarious. There's a Tengu like rogue. And so I made this character. His name is Darren Sulison, and he's neurodiverse. He's on the spectrum. He's
Mhm.
autistic. And so I wrote him. He lives out in like the Badlands with his mother. He's a half orc. His father's an orc. His mom's his mom's a half elf, and his father's an orc. And like they basically were like, well, neither one of our like communities approves of this marriage, so we're just going to go out to the wilderness and live there. And
Oh, it's so sad.
they had, well, like they're happy, they wanted to be there. It's
Yeah.
they have a good relationship. I promise you. And so they had their son Darren, and Darren is autistic, and he's like, well, like he just sees the world in a different way. I mean, I work with a lot. I'm not autistic myself, but I work with a lot of autistic kids, so I kind of, you know, based him on a lot of their experiences, what they've told me about like how they live their lives. And I ended up he has a lion. He found like a lion cub, a little girl lion, and he calls her sister,
Oh.
and she's his emotional support animal basically. Whenever he starts to feel like tense or you know, like feels like he's, you know, like I don't want to use the word meltdown because that's not really the right thing, but
Yeah.
like whenever he feels like the
Like
world is kind of closing in
stress.
on him, he's getting a panic attack. Yeah, he's getting stressed and he's having trouble dealing with those feelings.
Mm.
She'll like sit on him. She'll put pressure on him, and she'll like help him out. And so they like walk around together. Um and like the artist who drew him was so amazing because she drew the lion like pressed up against him, and I was like, he's so cute and adorable. But so he's a scout. He guides people through the wilderness basically.
Mm.
And so you like he'll find people that are lost, and he'll guide them to places. And he's very like he's very like stoic. Like he doesn't show a lot of emotions, but he listens really carefully, and he's like very concerned about like the wilderness and everything. So like the one thing that he hates and the one thing that will get him angry is if you mistreat animals or the wilderness. So like I had this whole he's one of my favorites. So that's him. That was Darren. And then
Sweetie Darren.
the most recent thing I contributed to was Table for Two, which is a duo adventure compilation. So it's for one DM and one player.
That
Which is
sounds
very relevant to like times now because sometimes you're stuck in the house with one person, you can't get your gaming group together. Now you have adventures to run.
yes.
So I wrote this story called The Heist of High Hill, and it is it's actually based on a session that my husband ran in our home Pathfinder game, which we affectionately call the hand job. Um, because we went to this we were in this like very like gothic type place, and we had to infiltrate this birthday party, and steal. We were looking for information, and the guy who had the information was like, I want my hand back. And he had a hook for a hand, and he's like, I want my hand back. And we're like, oh well, we can't pay for like a regeneration spell, that's too expensive. And he was like, no,
harsh.
this noble family cut my hand off when I tried to steal from them. I want my hand back. And it's in their library, locked up there.
Like in a jar on the shelf, just
And
chilling.
yes, it was on a plaque. They had like a gentle repose spell on it, so like it wouldn't rot. It was just a hand like up on the wall. And so we went in and we stole the hand back, and we almost got caught, and it was the whole thing. But so I was like, we had so much fun with that session, like just so much fun figuring out how to infiltrate this party and figuring what we were doing. And our rogue was upstairs all alone, like having to like unlock everything and disable all the traps, and we were downstairs trying to distract people. And I was like, this would be so much fun as a solo adventure because there's so many different roles you can play, but you kind of need a team. So the way I did it was that it's everything about it is a table basically. The general story is that you've been hired, or you are the protege of this thief. 10 years ago they were caught and they got their hand chopped off, and now they're like, I finally have someone that I've trained that is good enough to go back in there and get the thing that I wanted to get when I lost my hand. So now you're going to go, and here's a list of people you can hire to be like your team, and this is the thing you're going after, and here's all the information. So like there's tables for everything. There's a table for the different people that you can hire, and the roles that they can play. There's a table for what exactly it is that's being stolen. There's a table for who the captain of the guard is.
Oh
there's a table
wow.
for
That's a clever
like the
solution.
whole idea is that you're infiltrating someone's birthday. There's this the like the daughter of this noble who cut off the hand of the thief. His daughter is 18 and it's her 18th birthday and this is her debut. And so there's a reason for why the two of them are fighting and like like something that you can like kind of figure out and like use to your advantage. There's a table for the twist, which is like something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm like do the
there's
twist.
a yeah, well, in some cases,
My
yes.
brain's
So
at
my
rest.
favorite twist though is so I wrote this whole thing out and I was like, I need like a phantom thief. I need like a vigilante, like a masked thief who's
Mm.
gonna like sneak into this place and like cause trouble. So I came up with this idea for there's this one of the things you can find out about why the daughter and the father are fighting is that the father caught the daughter sneaking out to go meet her girlfriend, who's a baker in town.
Uh,
And he's like, you're like, how dare you? You're gonna make a good marriage to a noble, not to some random baker. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And she's
already the
like, Dad, like, I'm in love, Dad. You can't stop me. And like, so they're in a fight about that. So I had the Phantom Thief, who's named the Silver Raven, be her girlfriend in disguise. That's her whole deal. Is that she comes to town, she has an alter ego, but she's really Batman, and she's like going in to do things. And so she sends a letter to the father, being like, "Tonight I will steal your most prized possession." So he's like, there, he's got guards everywhere, and he's on the lookout for a phantom thief. And like she shows up and steals away the daughter, and they leave to go off and have a life together because they can be together when
and
she's
they
not
won.
under the thumb of her father. And
Yeah.
so it was reviewed. Someone reviewed it on the DMs Guild, and he was like, "That was my favorite part of the whole story when like the Phantom Thief is like could potentially show up." And so I replied to him on Twitter, and I was like, "Honestly, I think she should show up for every game because it's just such a great twist."
Yeah.
But he basically was like hashtag birthday gal pals, and I was like, that is the most amazing thing I've ever heard.
See, it's
So
like
yeah.
that's what I love about the internet is like joining the like you can find other people who align with your like love for these things, you know?
Yes.
It's such a gift. It's
Yeah.
so nice.
So the whole idea of the idea of the heist is that you can play it multiple times with the same people, and it's always different.
Yeah.
So there's
Now,
always going to be a twist about it, and you can always play a different role. Like maybe you're playing the face, so like you're down at the party, like talking to people and keeping the distraction up while your NPC friend goes up and robs the place. Maybe you want to play the thief this time, so you're like infiltrating the house and
that would be easy one to get obsessed with for sure. Like just
yeah,
be like,
yeah,
I want to be best and I'm going to go. That one you could play over and over again.
yeah. So like that's kind of the plan. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, so those are. I also did for my adventure in Uncaged is in volume 2. And then my for volume 4, we were a little short. We only had like it was like 16 or 17 stories. Usually we had 20 stories per volume, and we didn't have that many. So and someone had made a D&D class called the Uncaged, um, which was like they were going to print in the back of the book. And the editor of the whole, or the project leader, was basically like, hey, we need some stuff to fill in this back section. So like if you have like NPCs or like a class archetype or just a bunch of other stuff,
Mm.
send it over and we'll put it in. So I ended up making a warlock patron called the Uncaged. I think that's what she's called. I forget, but she's a Medusa. The patron of the story of Uncaged as a whole is Medusa, because she's
Did she
like
get
it's
justice? Did she get justice this time?
oh yes, many times. Lamias,
Stop.
mermaids, dryads, everyone gets justice. It's great.
Good.
I can promise you that. So I don't know if you've ever seen
Medusa's
the
story always made
this.
me sad. I always felt bad for Medusa. I'm like, damn,
Well,
girl.
have you ever seen the statue Medusa with the head of Perseus?
I have. I've just seen that
Yeah.
actually
So
recently.
that was like the inspiration for the whole thing, was that like Medusa with the head of Perseus, like finally the monster getting their revenge. Um
Yeah.
And
It's so
so that's the whole point of Uncaged is like you let loose the monster inside you and finally take what what you deserve. Um, so that sounds a lot more like militant than it actually is. It's just
it's bringing me
it's
to like
different perspectives.
archetypal psychology. I'm like, yes, I can see this in like real life, and that's another thing about just like game and lore. Like it all. I really have a belief that everything in the world actually ties together perfectly, and everything makes like perfect sense, and everything like meshes great. Like perfect isn't the right word, but you know what I mean. I'm like, it all
Yeah,
actually makes sense, and it's all interconnected, and I can really see like just between different things that we all gain inspiration from that we think are different that actually stem from all of these same like archetypal places. And I mean it's the most
yeah.
obvious in storytelling and in games and in lore, right? And mythology.
Hmm.
But it's so just you learn about yourself, man. Break yourself wide
I
open.
know. It's great.
Oh my goodness. Well,
Yes.
Allie, we this is my longest interview yet, and I am here
Oh,
for it.
really?
Yeah, it's great. We're at 100. I said 125 minutes. Oh my gosh, we're at an hour and
Oh
20.
no. Oh, I hope not.
Do you want to add anything else? Is there anything else you want to talk about? I am not tired. I will do this all day.
I know. I'm trying to think if like there's anything else I want to really talk about, aside from just saying that Mastermind's amazing and everyone who were and Alexis is amazing. Thank you,
Talking
Alexis,
Allie, you're amazing.
for
I just,
for this.
ugh, you're amazing. You
I know
don't
I miss
know
you so much.
the energy you're giving me right now. I was so excited to see you today. I was actually
I
having like
know.
a little bit of a rough morning. We put my dog down today and just like little
Oh
I
no.
know
I'm so
so but
sorry.
I wanted to like be doing something, you know, and I was like, I'm so happy
Yeah.
I get to talk to Allie. I'm so excited.
I'm glad I can provide.
Get
Anytime you want to talk.
I know we need to do this. We're gonna have to do like virtual, just for we've shared all the things
Definitely.
that we want to do, like
I
meet
know, I know.
fun stuff,
I know,
but
right?
like other
Right?
people, yeah, there are many things to come. Allie is a woman of many talents, as you have seen, and she is like the most epic storyteller. Has the biggest heart. Is gonna make everyone feel so included, and she's never ever going to make you bored or make you hit a wall that you cannot get past. She is incapable of that.
Oh,
So, do you
I'm
have anything
blushing.
else to add, Allie?
If you want to follow me on Twitter, I guess. I rarely post, but I kind of need to increase my engagement if I want to sell books. So my Twitter handle is at the useless bard.
At the useless
Um,
bard. Any weird
yes.
spellings or just as is?
Nope. It's just I am the useless bard.
Great name.
And I post occasionally. I retweet a lot of stuff. Um, and I probably need to do a pin tweet with all the stuff that I have out there so far because being on social media is not something that's natural to me. So
Yeah, we're all learning.
yeah, it's hard. I mean, I'm sure it hasn't seemed so from this interview, but it's hard for me to talk about myself and like like make myself seem cooler than I actually am. So it's hard for me sometimes to like self promote and all that kind of stuff. So if you also have trouble self promoting, anyone out there, follow me and we can help each other promote. Um, but yeah, I mean, I hope to now that my like time has kind of evened out a little bit and I have more time. I hope to actually have some games up like on the GM for Hire thing. So if you're looking for like a weird game that is feminist and inclusive and probably very much about story and not really about rolling, I'm your girl.
In depth
So
for sure.
yeah. So and I'm the way that I tend to do things is I'm not very good at like I have ideas about games and things, but I play off of other people's things and I like to tailor games to people. So if anyone out there is interested in playing a game and you want to play with me, find me on Twitter. And I'll probably be able to come up with something. Um,
Can they find you
yeah.
anywhere else other than Twitter? Are you and obviously
I do have an Instagram. It's also at the Useless Bard. I don't check that quite as often, but it is on my phone somewhere. I don't do Facebook too much. But I'm just Ali Sulentic on Facebook. You can probably find me associated with all the mastermind stuff. And I think that's about it. Like I don't have anything else. I don't really do Snapchat or anything else like that. So yeah, Twitter's probably the best place to find me.
Well, we'll find Allie at Twitter at the Useless Bard.
Mm-hmm.
And go to masterminds.com/adults or just masterminds.com. Check us all out. Then you can book some gaming with Allie. You can get to know her profile a little bit more. I know we've gotten in depth, but there are just so many cool things about you. And
Yes.
I love talking to you today.
I love talking about gaming. So even if you just want to have a conversation about games, I'm always up for it.
I was gonna say, I was like, if you want to get her more active on Instagram, just like tweet something interesting about our tweet.
Please, yes, yeah. Ask me questions because I'm bad at talking about myself, but I will answer questions all day. So
you did great, and I'm so happy I got to like
thank you.
And talk to you again because it's been
too long. I'm happy.
I know. Okay, so we'll close out on this. Allie Sulentic, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. For more information on Allie, you can go to mastermindadventures.com. For more information on all of our GMs, every Tuesday and Thursday, we will be here doing these awesome live videos, and there'll be more information on the Masterminds page for when those will be. I hope you enjoyed this today, and we're going to go ahead and sign off and talk about tarot cards.
Bye everyone.